Okay, everyone. So this is forecasting if your periodicity is odd. All right. So first thing we're going to do is we'll show how we know that this periodicity is odd, right? So first thing we're going to do is we're going to grab the demand. We're going to go to insert. Going to go to this line chart. Boom. Post it right there. Now the way you find the periodicity is you look for the peak of each cycle and you look at how long it takes to get to each one, right? So it starts at 1, goes to 3. So it's 3. Your periodicity is 3. That's how you know. Now you can just delete that and make sure you save that data somewhere so you don't forget. And it's easier to draw upon in the equations. So now we know our periodicity is 3, which means that every one of these cycles is 3 periods long. So this is 1, that's 2, that's 3. Now when they ask for giving you a future cycle, that means that they want this many additional periods. So we have 10, 11, and 12. And we'll highlight those in red. Okay. Now we have a couple of things that we want to find out, like our deseasonalized demand, our d bar, which is equal to L plus lowercase t times uppercase T. Then you have our ST, which is equal to demand divided by d bar. All right. Now, I, I can neither confirm nor deny this, but this has worked for every single example that I've been given so far. Basically, if you have an odd periodicity, you break it apart into two numbers being one whole number apart, right? So let's say your periodicity was 7, right? What are two numbers that you can break this into in which those two numbers are one apart? 4 and 3, right? They're one apart, and add them together, you get 7, right? So keep that in mind because this is what I've used to figure out the deseasonalized demand. So you have your p is equal to 3. Now, what two numbers can you break 3 into where one is just 1 point bigger than the other? What's the only possible thing you can do, which is a 2 and a 1, right? Now, this 2 and a 1 will help you figure out exactly what your deseasonalized demand is going to look like. So you're going to have a space. This means you go 2 up and also 1 down. All right. So that means you need to have two demand values above it to even start. This cannot have one. There are no demand values above this one. This one only has one, so you can't get two. So you have to start here. Following. So you have equals demand 1 plus demand 2 plus the line you're actually on plus this final one. So you have your 1, 2, which make up these two right here. And then you have this last one that also counts for this one right here. Now you're also including the line you're actually on. Then you open your parentheses right there, you close it here, and then you divide all of this, and you divide all of this by your periodicity right there. Enter. Now you have your deseasonalized demand for your first value. Now you can drag this all the way down to your last known demand. Why can I not do that? Ah, this is actually something that I forgot to mention. Whenever you drag this down from here, you make all of these values go down by 1. So if I drag this down once, I'll show you actually. Okay. Drag it down by 1. See? This was B2, B3, B4, B5 to B16. Now this is B3, B4, B5, B6 to B17. It went down by 1. Now, this is fine to go down by 1 because you want it to go to the next factor. But what you don't want to happen is grabbing this value which is B17, because there's nothing here. So the way you do that is you put dollar signs, one in front of the letter, one in front of the number. And what this does is those dollar signs are basically keeping that value in place throughout all of these. So no matter where you go, it'll always be B16. This is something we're going to use throughout the rest of this. Now, you already have your spaces, so we're going to remove those. Now, last thing you want to do is you want to check to make sure that all of these values are actually associated with a number. So the way you do that is you just click right here. Ooh, see? Period number 9 is not getting a value at 10 because we don't have a value for 10. So that means that this value is unusable. We remove that. Cool? Okay. Now comes in something important, very, very important. We're going to go over here to data, and you're going to click here at data analysis. Now, if you do not have this, you are going to go to file. You're going to go down here to options. You're going to scroll down to add-ins. Click go right here. And make sure this analysis tool pack is checked. You cannot do this unless you have this tool pack checked. If you can't do this, you may have a Mac version, you may be on the online version of Excel, you need to have the offline version, the actual app itself, something that like this right here. So you make sure this is checked off. Boom. Now you click your data analysis and you look for regression. You click OK. Now as you can see right here, I'll just remove all this so it's fresh for everyone. Like right here for your input Y range. Now your Y range is going to be only your deseasonalized demand values. And your X range is only going to be the periods in which they also have a deseasonalized demand. So 2 doesn't have one, so you're not highlighting 2. 9 doesn't have one, you're not highlighting 9. Okay. Now what I do is I don't like going to a different sheet to get my data, so I click this button right here, output range. And then I can pick wherever I want my information to go. I'll just click J1 to spice it up. There. And now this, the reason why we did all of this is for these two values right here. Now these two values are your L and your T. Now if you're wondering, what do you need L and T for? It's for your D-bar equation right there. Now the lowercase t is your period. The uppercase T and the uppercase L are these two values right here, respectfully. So L is this top value and T is this bottom value. So easiest way to drag it over. There. Now you can simply substitute your numbers in. You can click right here, and that is plus your lowercase t, which is your period, remember. And then make sure you put an asterisk right there to signify a multiplication. Then you have your uppercase T value right there. Now here's something very important, like what I mentioned before. We want it to stay on these two values. We do not want them to move down and start pulling from blank slots. So we're going to have to use our dollar signs again in front of the letters and numbers. Now remember, do not put it on the period because you want it to go to period 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You don't want them all to get stuck on period 1. Bam, right there. Boom. So now what you can do is you can drag this all the way down to period 12. Reason why you can do this is because these numbers have nothing to do with the demand. They have to do with the deseasonalized demand just to give you these two values. So you don't have to worry about the fact that these are blank. These numbers still work. This is how they're supposed to work. Okay. Now we have our D bar. We have most of our demand, and we have our values done to get the D bar. And now we're moving on to the ST. ST is just demand divided by D bar. So all you're going to do is do this for every single row until you can't anymore. And what I mean by that is, well, you can't divide a demand by D bar if there's no demand. You're going to stop right there. Now, I want to go back to what periodicity is. What periodicity is just telling you how many periods are in a single cycle. Now, a question is usually going to ask, um, predict the next, or like predict the future cycle. Now, what that means, I'm going to drag this down actually. Now, what that means is that you are going to produce whatever your periodicity is. That's how many additional periods you're going to add, because that's another cycle. Remember, this was a cycle, this was a cycle, this was a cycle, and this was a cycle, right? Now, as you can see, 10 is the first value of this fourth cycle we have here. And the way you find out your ST for these values is you average out the STs of every first value of every cycle you have here. So period 1 is the first value of the first cycle, comma. Period 4 is the first value of the second cycle, and period 7 is the first value of the third cycle. And of course, you don't want to grab period 10 because that's what you're solving for. Boom. Now, you can go equals and you can click all the other values you want for 11 or 12, or you can simply drag from here. Because remember, like I said, it goes down by 1. So it'll go down from the first of the first period to the second of the first period, and so on and so forth for the rest of them. So now you have your ST and your D bar. Now you're just missing your demand. Now this is just simple math. You have your ST equation, which is ST equals demand divided by D bar. Now what we want to find out is we want to find out our demand. So the way you can do that is by multiplying D bar on both sides to get ST times D bar is equal to demand. And look at that, we have our ST and our D bar right here. So we can just multiply them together and we can get our D bar. Look at that. I mean, hey, that looks like the same numbers to me. All right. And that's how you do it, forecasting with an odd periodicity.